From SCNR.com. Dave Chappelle compares Jim Carrey role to trans people. This is taking the internet by storm. Dave Chappelle's new comedy special, The Dreamer, is out, and the first joke he makes in his special. It's a masterclass in comedy. I think, how long is it? Like 7 minutes long?
It's a good build up.
He tells this long story. It's an emotional roller coaster. My dad died, and he says I'm in distress.
Norm Macdonald and Andy Kaufman are in it.
Norm Macdonald calls him on the phone and says, "Would you like to meet Jim Carrey?" And Dave says, I'm such a big fan." He then goes on to praise Jim Carrey as like a natural talent that you just can't learn. He gives this really long story about how he finally met Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey is method acting as Andy Kaufman. So when he shows up, they're like, "Don't call him Jim, call him Andy." And he's like, "What?" And he's like, "This is so weird." And he's like, in hindsight, how amazing was it to get to witness this artist in one of his most powerful roles? But at the time, I got to admit, I was disappointed. And then after this big, long story, and he's like, "So there I am. I know that's Jim Carrey, but they're making me say Andy." And the reason I tell you this story, that's how trans people make me feel. Like that whole buildup was for that kind of bang. Like a shotgun blast. Now, here's why this is important. Dave Chappelle immediately then afterwards insults handicapped people, conservatives, Madison Cawthorn specifically.
Wow.
Specifically Madison Cawthorn. He goes off on Madison Cawthorn. It is brutal.
Does he make a cripple joke too while he's at it?
The whole thing is mocking him for being handicapped.
Oh man.
He says he lost his re-election.
He lost his seat.
He lost his seat.
As a handicap.
He ran a bad race. And the crowd is losing it. And then he goes on to claim that the only reason anyone would invite Madison Cawthorn to an orgy, and then he imitates a paraplegic getting gangbanged.
I was wondering if you're going to bring that up.
But the reason I bring this up is Dave Chappelle did not single out the trans community. He literally made fun of anybody he could. Yep. And back to back, because he's not actually trying to insult trans people. He's making jokes. He then makes jokes about handicapped people. He makes jokes about Republicans.
Asians.
He makes jokes about Asians, and in the same joke makes a joke about black people. He's just ribbing on everybody, and everyone's loving it. Here's why I say all of it is important. Dave Chappelle is the GOAT. Okay, they call him the GOAT, the greatest of all time. When he releases a Netflix comedy special, which is #1 by the way right now, it's hilarious, and he says, "This is how I feel, and I can joke about these things." He is telling regular people, it is now okay for you to joke as well about conservatives, about the handicapped, about Asians, about black people, about trans people. We just have jokes.
Yes.
He's basically setting that line in the sand. So now, over the past several years, you've had people who are scared to do comedy. Jerry Seinfeld talked about all those years ago, college campuses are insane. All these people getting canceled. Dave Chappelle comes out and says, "You can't cancel me." They tried. They couldn't do it. $20 million for a comedy special. And the first joke he does was about trans people. And he follows it up by saying, "I'm not going to, if you thought you were going to come to this show and to hear me joke about these people, you thought wrong. I'm not going to joke about these people. It was not worth it." Maybe 3 or 4 times.
He does an impression of a handicapped person who came to his show to hear trans jokes and then is disappointed that he's hearing handicapped jokes, but then is then later happy when he hears handicap or trans jokes again. It's brilliant. And like, I think his audience and a lot of audiences of these types of comedians, it was DC, and it's a barometer of the culture, right? Like that's the audience was just in love, right? And there's that feels really good to see that.
When the whole crowd erupts in cheers when he finishes the first joke about Andy Kaufman, I was like, wow, dude. A DC liberal audience is cheering and clapping for what he just said about how he feels when he's told he has to act like someone is someone else. And then when he mentions Madison Cawthorn, someone goes, "Oh," in the audience, like clearly not a conservative, not a fan. But there are a lot of people now that saying wokeness is dead. It's been dying out. It was never popular to begin with. People were just too afraid of cancel culture. When someone like Dave Chappelle stands up and says, "Dude, I don't care. I'm telling a joke and you can't do anything about it," he basically plants a flag, and now regular people can stop being scared and call out the crackpots that they don't like.
That's part of the reason why 2024 is going to be kind of, or one of the many factors that is going to make 2024 kind of crazy. The people that are interested in social justice as legislation they are going to be holding on to power. They're going to be doing whatever they can to pass legislation that benefits their ideology. And it's the same thing as like when the Allies were going towards Germany, they just ramped up the killing the Jews because it's an ideology. Like part of their ideology was kill the Jews. Part of the ideology of the left right now is to implement social justice stuff into law. So they're going to be doing all they can to ram laws that are as permanent as possible through before the election in order to hope, in their opinion, hopefully push this as far as they can, because it's likely they see that there's going to be a swing back of the pendulum.
I'm glad that they've overreached and they've gone so far. It's like jujitsu. We can use their own momentum against them because they've gone so far. People don't agree with it. That Dave Chappelle making what seems to be an inoffensive joke to anybody in the world is completely offensive to these people, to the point where they want to kill him. And shout out to Dave Chappelle, by the way. The only person to make a funny joke about me that I enjoyed from the Don't Tase Me Bro thing like 15 years ago. The only one that made a joke I enjoy. So shout out to Dave Chappelle. And I'm glad he's doing his own material and not just copying Owen Benjamin anymore. Just kidding.
Well, you got made fun of by Dave Chappelle.
Yes.
Yep. And that's when we were watching it, and he second joke in the act is mocking Madison Cawthorn. I was like, man, how lucky is Madison Cawthorn?
Yeah,
he was a member of Congress. I mean, not like he probably would have been happier if he didn't get primaried, but for Dave Chappelle to do a comedy special making fun of you as a member of Congress, you are immortal. The joke he makes about you in that moment, and he says he saw him, and he yelled, "Hey, Congressman." And he looks over him and he's mad, and he's like, and then I walked away. I wanted to see him do some. I wanted him to see me do something he couldn't do. That's what he says. I'm like, if that were me, I was getting made fun of by Dave Chappelle, I'd be like, man,
honor. It's a total honor. It's like why I love shows like Kill Tony too, like Tony Hinchcliffe, like just roasting people. That to me is the way. That's my favorite type of comedy. Not just the surreal stuff, which I also like, but people just ragging on you. That's catharsis, and that's why a lot of like when I saw Louis get like quote unquote canceled all those years ago, I was like, that was the beginning of me really understanding like they're gonna take out artists and comedy first, because those are the people who subvert the whole power structure, right? And then Louis handled it, I thought, very poorly with the apology and stuff, and Chappelle did the opposite thing. He just doubled down, which I appreciate that. To me, I was just say to me, it's like that's more punk rock. What Chappelle does is punk rock. Louis didn't.
When I got one of the times when people were like giving me crap, and in response I wrote a song called Never Sorry.
That's how you do it.
Yeah, it is.
That's exactly how you do it, right? Like you were saying earlier, like you only let yourself be canceled, right? They can't do it too. Yeah. Of course you can lose your jobs and stuff, and like they've got normal people in the world who lose their jobs. Yeah. But once you apologize, that gives them all the power over you.
You're admitting guilt.
Unless you did something wrong, you feel bad for it. Like, go ahead and apologize. Yes, but that's so rare.
But the thing is, when you are going to apologize, you have to apologize to a person that possesses the ability to forgive you.
Right.
When you apologize to a community, no one has the power to forgive you, and they're gonna use it against you in the future because you've admitted to it. And then 5 years, 2 years, whatever down the road, when you pop up in someone's sites again, and they're like, oh, I remember that guy. He did this terrible thing that we can crap on him again. So all I'm going to do is bring this up, and we can totally disregard what he says. Don't give them the power. Don't say I'm sorry, because then you're telling them I consent to your authority over me. You're demanding an apology, so I will allow you to have that power over me.
Exactly.
Get effed. You have no power.
Don't be afraid to be called any bad words.
Elon buying Twitter was massive.
Absolutely.
Oh. I was here just about a year ago, and I was banned from Twitter. Not allowed. I shouted out a bunch of people, Patriot J, Old Rose Swig, all banned. And today, they're all back. Alex Jones is back.
Patriot J is great.
Alex Jones
Shout out
back.
Patriot J. Yeah.
Crazy.
It's a different world with Alex Jones back on Twitter, and with Elon letting him grow and grow and grow. So 2024, it's the best of times, it's the worst of times. Hundreds of thousands coming through the southern border, but at the same time, Alex Jones being popular and mainstream on Twitter. Very, very different year we're going to have. It feels like meme magic is here in full effect.
That is one thing I'm afraid of, though, because the counterculture is going to swing so hard back, and now with people like Alex back, but I feel like they're going to find a way to subvert our subversion, like they're going to find a way to just turn off the power.
The thing is,
that bothers me.
When you're subversive, or when you're dealing with people like, in the world that we deal in,
right,
where outside of the mainstream narrative, just because you hear a story that's outside of the mainstream narrative doesn't mean it's true or it's right. And that's one of the things that the people that are outside of the mainstream need to be focused on right now. Yes. Just because someone that is looked at as outside of the acceptable conversation says something doesn't mean they're correct. In fact, you have to be more careful now.
We've had that fire drill once before. The QAnon thing, everybody saw. QAnon's not real. I think people are a little wiser than they were last go around, that people are being able to spot whatever they try to throw at us.
I think there is a decent probability of some kind of cyber 9/11, people call it. And that something, because I think it was was it Bill Gates who was talking about this, the risk of our digital infrastructure and cyber attacks? Imagine this scenario. First, let me just say, I don't know the probability, but I think there is a possibility considering the stakes of 2024. The internet has gone down before. There have been cyber attacks over the past several years. We note them. And then there was one where Google actually went down, and all of a sudden nobody could get to their websites because people don't actually type in the websites. They type in the word, press enter, and it pulls up Google, which they then click the thing. Yeah. When I'm searching for things on Twitter, I don't search Twitter, I search Google. I'll type in Phil Labonte, communist, meme, X, and then it'll pop up with his latest post, and I'll click it. That's how I find it. So when Google went down, I forgot exactly what happened. All of a sudden, internet traffic dropped dramatically. Imagine a scenario where, for some reason, the internet is just down. Just in general. And the only information going out is through terrestrial television, CNN, Fox News, MSNBC. Imagine during the election, we get some kind of attack, and that's what happens. Imagine if just before the election, something like that happens, they can then say whatever they want without being fact-checked by anybody else, and no one can discount them. There may be a scenario like that. I don't know. It could be oh no, we get attacked and the infrastructure goes down. And, oh, we better fix it. We don't know what's going on. And it's an act of war, which we then use to justify some kind of escalation somewhere else, but then also allows them to basically say to a show like ours, if you want to stay on the air, it's going to cost you what do they charge? $1,000 an hour or something for dedicated satellite. And what y'all need to understand about the way YouTube works, this is only possible. This show is only possible because YouTube pays for the streaming costs. What people need to understand is when we are streaming right now at about 6,000 kilobits per second. That means for the 45,000 people watching it, receiving between 2,000 and 6,000, multiply that. Multiply that 6,000 by 45,000, and you'll get the actual data transfer. There's no possible way we could afford that. It's only possible because of these website subsidies. So when you see Rumble, they're spending a pretty penny to get those shows out because they want to make that work. So shout out to Rumble. YouTube, of course, is subsidized by Google. It's not that extreme. We may actually be able to what we would just do is it's $10 a month to subscribe to the show, and then we could use that money to pay for the stream and all that stuff. But it just basically it would make it so that literally anybody who wants to watch has to pay. I believe that's their best attack vector for shutting down the kind of things.
I agree. I mean, there's been so many reports about the internet apocalypse, and they're worried about solar flares. But from what I'm hearing, solar flares wouldn't probably affect it. I think what they would do is blame it on a solar flare and then just shut it off, on their own, and then prevent us from subverting the narrative like a lot of us were doing during lockdowns or talking about election stuff. That's gonna be tough. That's why I've been very open in my community about how I feel about everything. I'm building up people in my immediate community who I know I can trust and agree with. Maybe nothing will happen, but I don't want to be in a spot again where I'm surrounded by a bunch of idiots like I was in New York and not handle the society just being ripped to shreds.
I think even the speculation of us talking about this, it puts a wrench in their plans, because if everybody is thinking ahead of time, oh, these people want to do something evil to stop us. If something like this were to go down, everyone knows where to point the finger.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.